So I will just do some introduction.
Please.
So with me is Haywood. He's the CEO of Binery, and yeah, Haywood, let's just give some background about your company and yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Dima. So we're trying to solve the problem of bookkeeping. So which is a specific function in accounting.
Yeah.
And our startup is trying to really solve a lot of data entry problems from an accounting perspective.
Okay.
So the application that we built really came from our users, our customers, being very frustrated with the accounting. There's a lot of accounting softwares out there in the world, but it's very digital. And there's still a lot of offline businesses, brick and mortar, mom and pop shops that cannot just tomorrow go to digital.
I see.
So we built a lot of software to make it easier for them from turning real life paper into data. And that's been the software that we've been building for the past 3 to 4 years now. And it's been used by quite a lot of people. So essentially in the technology world, it's called OCR, optical character recognition.
Yeah.
And we built quite an advanced one because in this part of the region, we have to facilitate for like multiple languages. Some are handwritten, some are different formats.
Yeah, I know handwritten is really insane for the OCR.
Yes.
They can't recognize just like the handwritten text.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one part of it, the OCR part. And then
Okay.
the other part is we built sort of like a Monday.com for bookkeepers. So on one side, it's like helpful for the customers. They don't really care how you do their accounts. They just want to take pictures, dump everything to you, and focus on their business.
Okay.
And then the accountants, they want to, make it easier for them to do the books. So we're focusing the software on both parts.
Is it similar to, do you know Expensify?
Yeah.
Is it like your competitor?
Expensify is a competitor. Obviously, they're much bigger, listed. They're much earlier, but very focused on the US side.
Yeah, exactly.
So for us, we're trying to build the expense function here,
Okay.
but more around the accounting side. So it's not just the OCR, but it has the same features. Like, if you have a team, what's the approvals you're going to make? What's the limits you can make on each person reimbursing? Yeah.
Nice.
Very similar.
And how did you come up with this idea in general? Like, what was the trigger point?
I'm not an accountant.
Okay.
I don't. I grew into liking accounting, but really solving the pain of it. But it was my co-founder that was the CTO of a large accounting firm.
All right.
And then he tried digital transformation inside, didn't work out. And so
It was a challenge for him, like a personal challenge.
Yeah. So we tried it as a startup, and it's been going okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I've seen that you collected a couple of rounds for of investment.
Yeah. So when we started off, it was bootstrapped. We had only 4 customers. They had a problem with accounting.
Okay.
And the main thing is we usually deal with very high volume transactional businesses. If you go to a typical accountant around the world, whether it's in Russia or anywhere else, they would charge you based on how many transactions you have.
Exactly.
So if you have a lot of transactions, but each transaction is very low value, you get priced out of the market. And accountants, traditional accountants, they want to focus more on tax and audit, not bookkeeping. That's low margin business for them. So you really need technology to make it to service the market that is being underserved. So that's how we started with 4 customers, high volume transactional businesses. And then we're like, okay, this is something, let's go start raising. And this was like middle of COVID, 2021.
Tough time for everyone.
Yes. Yeah, we raised and then just slowly grow from there. And our target was always Hong Kong first, and then we kind of expanded to different parts of Southeast Asia.
But what you mentioned that you've built your own OCR. For me, it sounds like a very, very complex and effort-consuming technology to build. I used to work with the OCR from Adobe, because previously I worked at WorkFusion, which was the AI company. They automated banking processes, and obviously they had to work with a lot of papers,
RPA, OCR.
OCR, machine learning, everything. And I remember that OCR was even from Adobe, it was not like perfect. So it could recognize maybe 90% of all the printed text,
Yeah.
but it couldn't recognize handwritten at all by that time. I don't know, maybe is something changed now? Why have you decided to start developing such a complex technology by yourself?
Well, this is before OpenAI and ChatGPT, before the LLMs. And then we did this because we saw the financial data from books being very important. And it's not just our end goal being bookkeeping, but what can you do with the data to help customers and us expanding different product lines? Because right now, we need the OCR, especially for non-digital data, to become digital.
Okay.
But that's the only way. And there's a lot of stuff like, you know, Amazon have their off-the-shelf, Google have their off-the-shelf OCR. You can build from languages like Tesseract. And even before the llamas and the different LLMs, there's many OCRs. But the thing is, we can't just build the OCR by itself because it will only get commoditized. And we have to add things to it. So we added the features to help the accountants. We actually have an accounting team, so it becomes more of a service.
Ah, nice.
And then we kind of distribute the software to different accountants, and that's not ours as a software. So I think it's like playing around with the business model instead of just pure OCR.
Cool, and you can test this internally before you launch this to the market.
Got a feedback loop. Yeah.
Cool. And you also you mentioned that your partner, the co-founder, he had his personal challenge with digital transformation in the previous one, in the previous company. So what was the challenge and why did they not succeed?
With any big company, you have big company, multiple stakeholder relationships, multiple product silos. It's not just a few tickets on Jira,
For sure.
and you're just focusing on different budgets. People come and go. But if you're a startup with 2 or 3 people, you only have one focus, right? You're tracking daily active users and accuracy.
So it was more about internal, fighting and trying to align all the stakeholders here and there. It's hustle and bustle.
Especially traditional accountants. It's very hard to, move them from status quo.
I agree. I agree. No one else. So you are obviously in the growth phase at the moment. So how do you approach to the prioritization and building of your product pipeline in general? Where do you get data from?
So speaking to existing users, and speaking of existing users, I mean, I'm a believer of the whole product market fit thing, but to me, it's just keep it simple and just speak to the users, ask the right questions, see how they navigate around it. And then the more FaceTime you have, the more they will spill out their problems. And we just tally, hey, how many of these customers say the same thing over and over again? And then we just start the whole pipeline of, should we build this? What's the time?
That's the very good way of building the pipeline by talking to your users. That's really great.
I don't have a scientific method, but it's just talking to users. And we follow Agile. So I think it's bi-weekly sprints.
Okay.
And then 1 week the design sprint or something. So we generally follow this.
So basically you deliver releases to production every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Cool.
UAT production and then QA, that kind of process.
Do you already also analyze the data within your app? I mean, the analytics part of the development.
Oh, that's something I really want to introduce. We just never. And so right now we have to write some syntax to get syntax. SQL query to get that information. But if I had something I like the tools like Barometrics or those kind of tools. Chart Mogul or Growth Mogul. I want to use those tools, but at a later stage.
Because data is also another valuable source of information for the product pipeline and for the product growth outside of the customer's conversation. That's at least that's what I know. Big companies do, even startups, they do this. So they analyze the data from their core systems. For instance, how users behave, like when they leave the application or the website, whatever, right? What's the churn rate? What's the retention rate?
Exactly.
And how to improve this? For instance, they do some A/B testing and check whether there is a 0.5% increase or decrease.
Exactly.
So that's how they play with it.
I think the thing, our bottleneck is that we're offering like half a service and half software.
I
So we
see.
can get quite, which side should we choose? And I think as we grow bigger, we're like, hey, a customer satisfaction, like people to people, and then here you're talking about the analytics. We can still go down both paths, but when we have more resources, for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, like software like Segment, Amplitude, those customer data platforms, I really want to use them. Exactly what you said, right? When did they leave the thing? How many times did they go onto your thing before they did this?
Once Peter Drucker said, you can't manage what you can't measure. Means so you have to rely on data all the time. Even when you talk to users, for instance, you try to split them into cohorts, into user groups. Then you try to gather different insights from those users groups, and then you have to prioritize and score them, and so on and so forth, in order to put some top features into your product pipeline. I'm sure that's what that's how you approach it.
Exactly.
Okay. So you partially mentioned the release process. I mean, you follow agile and you release like every 2 weeks to production. What's in general your development approach here? So you mentioned you have a team back in Thailand and in other countries. So do you build everything in-house, or you also use some vendors to build the product or some parts of the product?
This was during COVID, so it was really like when we built the team, it was really scrappy. So our first full-time employee is the head of engineering. And then he just came off a coding boot camp, switching from like UX UI into more technical, full stack.
Yeah.
And then we found some colleagues or contractors from Facebook from India. And then they slowly worked with us. So yes, you can say, officially speaking, we outsource to contractors, and then slowly they become full-time onto this.
Nice. So you kind of have this hybrid model when you have your own core team and you also have a contractor, and you kind of try to mix them and then the work as a single team.
Yeah, because we tried using TopTal.
Yeah.
We tried using the matching services like that. It was pretty good, but it was quite expensive.
For sure.
And I mean, it was really nice service, but it was quite expensive. Yeah, and then interesting, our Egyptian colleagues was sourced by our Indian colleagues. So we didn't know how to source from in Egypt, but apparently there's good talent there.
Yeah.
Quite economical.
And Haywood, I'm also thinking of the local market in general. What's your target market for Binery?
Our target market. Our target market are small mom and pop shops. And when I say that, it's mostly in the F&B, food and beverage, in the commerce/e-commerce space. And basically any business less than 50 people that's not an ERP system that have lots of transactions and lots of unstructured data.
But they just use your subscription model, I assume, right?
Yes.
And they pay you monthly.
Yes.
And is it Hong Kong only or China as well? And,
no. When we raise money, we actually have to choose north, like go to China, or go to Southeast Asia. Because going north, it's a very different playbook.
Yeah.
And so we chose Southeast Asia. But inbound, we get quite a lot of Europe and US customers.
So they come to you by themselves?
Yes.
Like through the network or marketing?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. And in general, so what do you think of the Southeast Asia digital market? I know that for the last 5 years, it's been growing significantly, especially countries like Thailand and you mentioned Indonesia. So, but in overall landscape and potential, how do you see it?
I think the base is big, like the TAM is huge, and you will get early adopters. And if we're targeting the same personas that I just mentioned there, it cannot all be through digital. You still need legs on the ground. And to run around and acquire the first few customers. Because it's not like the stuff we're doing, it's not going to be viral. It's not going to be like B2C TikTok kind of feel.
For sure.
So, so I still think the early adopters, they'll really test it out for you and like push. But acquiring those customers will still take some time.
And here in Hong Kong, for instance, I also know that there is a way for digitization, like a lot of work to do in terms of the public services, in terms of the government services, and in general, like in every industry. So, do you see a significant boost last years, or like in terms of the development of IT solutions in general and integrating this into an ecosystem?
I think for enterprise companies, it's quite well embedded because there's a lot of system integrators. So you just buy a lot of networking equipment, software equipment, Databricks, working with AWS. So AWS, Google, and Microsoft, they have big sales teams here. Not a lot of engineers, but a lot of sales teams. And it really serves the higher tier SMEs and the enterprise very well. When you're talking about startups or even solo projects, government has a few things where they can subsidize if it's an IT project, like maybe like reimburse half of those expenses. And that's been quite helpful. I think there are a lot of development shops here but it's like, 1 or 2 man businesses and not at scale. So I can't tell you there's like a go-to thing if you want to build like a micro SaaS or something. There isn't a go-to here in Hong Kong.
Sure.
So it's kind of scrappy, right? And then that's where your instinct, you start going to Fiverr, Upwork, and then see what's there, but the credibility. So I think, just to summarize, pretty well covered here. The gap is still big here.
And for the mid-sized businesses, for sure, they can't go to Upwork because they have already passed the
How can you do
point.
IAM or like any like access management? Exactly.
And what about you? What challenges does your company have, technical-wise, or maybe at some point you understand that your current processes doesn't fit well because you just scale and you need to switch to other ones. So do you have internal challenges?
Yeah, I don't think we have a product manager. We don't have a product manager. And
who acts as a product manager? Is it you?
Sometimes I veto. And then maybe our head of operations, because his team is contacting the most of the users, and also his accounting team is, the real users. So we get feedback from all over the place. How do we filter it? We just don't have any of that. And then the second thing is, as you said, OCR accuracy, still 90%, 92% plus for us, but the other 8%.
Oh, that's a very good, percent.
On English,
very good precision.
Chinese. But handwritten, when it's cursive, we can never fix it.
Yeah.
So,
are you looking for a product manager to hire now in-house?
Yes.
Because I know it's a very key role, especially for the growing product, to have someone who will align all the different data flows and just build a solid pipeline and then start just executing.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said, right? Yes, they would have access to Jira or whatever, Asana, but that's the whole data analytics part. That's important.
That's true.
But we don't have the luxury for that at the moment.